Welcome, everybody, to Dead Talk Live. And today we've got special guest Steve Gonsalves, the lead paranormal investigator of the Atlantic Paranormal Society. Steve, how you doing, man? Thank you for being here.
Hey, I'm doing great. Thank you for having me. It's going to be fun.
It is going to be fun. And just a little note, I actually saw you at New York Comic Con. I was in there during the roundtable. I came in towards the end, and I had a scheduled interview with Amy and Adam. I
Okay.
wanted to say hello, but you guys were pretty busy. So I'm really grateful that I get this opportunity to actually talk to you this time. So a big thank you for coming on today. So let's talk about
All
this
right. Thank you.
New Year's Day special. You guys are joining forces with Dakota and the Destination Fear team. You're investigating the Joliet prison. Tell us about this special, and was it a wild ride? What should we as viewers expect?
It was actually, that's a good way to put it, a wild ride. It was. It was actually a lot of fun. All three of those guys, Alex and Tanner and Dakota. Unfortunately, Chelsea wasn't there with us, but having those guys there, they really bring a whole different energy and sort of a different technique and style. Obviously, they're more let's see what we can do just to get an interaction, and hopefully that interaction is big enough to give us a bit of a fright, and that's a fun and great way to investigate. Different than our style, but having us together really worked awesome. I feel like just the way that they were communicating and really trying to draw something out helped quite a bit. There was a time when Alex was asking for something to come closer to him, and sure enough, you can hear these boot footprint sounds, or not footprints, I guess, but like
Yeah,
running sounds, and you can hear the sound of like boots hitting the metal stairs, and it really quite scared him, And Dakota and I were chasing around what we think was most likely an inmate. Really, there was some strong call and response happening, and the call and response and everything, you have to make sure that you are dealing with patterns. If it just happens once, twice, maybe, but two is a coincidence, three is a pattern. So we try to recognize that before we really considered a possible experience, and we were seeing those patterns all over that place, and it was really fun.
that's very interesting. Now, this episode, this special that's airing on New Year's Day on Discovery Plus, for everybody that wants to check it out, is also the kickoff to the new Ghost Hunter season. Is that accurate?
That's right. Yeah, we'll start every week. There'll be a new episode of Ghost Hunters available on Discovery Plus, and it's the episodes that we have coming uh, have been some of our favorite cases that we've ever filmed. Honestly, the team is in such a place where we are just locked in, and we know exactly what to do, and we focused really strongly on really bringing a resolution to the clients that we are dealing with. And although there have been some investigations that we've been able to explore these huge places like prisons and asylums, that as a paranormal investigator is a lot of fun, but we've also been able to really focus on the people who are living with this and are quite frightened,
Oh, yeah.
families that are ready to move out. And that's been quite a rewarding experience with this particular season. And expecting that the audience will really think that some of the evidence that we have caught is some of our best.
Awesome.
We really have some uh, really frightening things, to be honest with you, some things we didn't expect to capture.
Wow. Now, you guys are like the pioneers when it comes to televised ghost hunters. You guys started this like on Lifetime in like 2004. So take us back. How did you and Jason, who by the way, Jason Hawes was supposed to join us today, but due to a last minute scheduling change, he was not able to make it. He sends his regrets. Hopefully, we'll get Jason on at a later date, but we're really excited to have Steve here with us. So take us back to before you guys got on TV in 2004, how did you guys meet? Did you and Jason know each other? How did that work?
Yeah, we had history together, obviously, but before the show, there are some people who think, that we were sort of put together for television, and maybe, that's a way that the show may have portrayed in the beginning, but that certainly isn't the case. We were a team long before, and I knew Jason for quite some time. For instance, John Zaffis, who's somebody that we love and work with all the time. I met him when I was, I think, 14 years old or 15 years old for the first time. So we've all sort of known each other for a long time. But I worked lightly with Ed and Lorraine Warren for a little while on a few cases. And that's actually when I first met John Zaffis. And Jason had knew of my work just from my own team that I had, and of course I knew his work back then. It was called Rhode Island Paranormal, but we would just talk on emails and just phone calls and tell stories and talk back and forth. And then finally we're like, we should probably start working together, and we were investigating together. And then Grant it came along, and back then the team was called Rhode Island Paranormal. Grant was a webmaster and said, "You guys need a new website and a new team name. Like this is, Rich Rhode Island Paranormal is a little macabre, And so that's how
Taps.
that's when we became TAPS, right? The Atlantic Paranormal Society, and from there, that was the '90s. So we didn't, we were approached. We actually had a story that went out in the New York Times, and all of these production companies, because the team had already done Scariest Places on Earth, that Jason worked pretty closely with, that show Fear on MTV, and so the team was already lecturing and doing things. And we had a particular case that was showcased in an article for New York Times, and from there it went on through The Wire. That's just the service that goes everywhere.
And then the next thing you know, you're on TV. What was it like getting approached and saying, "Hey, what do you guys feel about doing this in front of a camera?"
Well, when we were first approached, I remember we had a meeting, and we collectively decided to turn it down. We were approached by a few different production companies saying, "We didn't even know people did this. This is real. Like, you guys have real jobs, but then as a hobby, you go do this." And we're like, "Yeah." They're like in the movies, and we're like, "Yeah, but real life." But back then, nobody wanted anybody to know that their house was haunted.
Yeah.
So we were like, we can't bring camera crews into these. We show up in unmarked cars and we park down the street. Like, people don't want people to know, because they're looked at like the weirdo on the street
Oh
back
yeah.
then.
Oh
Anyway,
yeah.
now you're kind of the cool person on the block if you have a haunted. You could sell tickets to your to your house, but back then nobody wanted. So that was a problem. And then we weren't TV guys. Jay and Grant were legitimately rotor plumbers. I was working as a police officer in the jewelry industry a little bit, and so it just wasn't for us. So we turned it down. I want to say for maybe 2 or 3 years.
Wow.
Yeah, but then in 2003, Pilgrim Films, who makes the show Ghost Hunters, really said, "Listen, we'll let you just do your thing, and we will just follow you. No, if it is a ghost, if it isn't, whatever." And we finally decided to do it, and that's how that's how it happened.
It's great that they let you do it your way and they didn't try to push anything on you. I think that's fantastic. And I think you guys made a great choice because obviously 2004, here we are in 2021, and you guys are still going strong. Now, what do you guys think of the pioneers, the Ed and Lorraine Warrens, the Hans Holzers, back in the days where there was no television shows that were documenting these. These were people with a true passion that wanted to go out, explore what was very taboo, what was not spoken about back then. If you believed you had a haunted house, you kept your mouth shut because you were afraid you would be sent to a lunatic asylum. You would be sent to a psychiatric ward. So looking back at those pioneers like the Warrens and the Hans Holzers, I'm sure you probably have the deepest of respect for what they did.
Of course, yeah. I was I was one of those people, and back then, people look back on Ed and Lorraine Warren as if, but when realistically, when we would go see them, there'd be, 20 or 30 people in a room. It wasn't as still the paranormal wasn't, what it is now. We were a bunch of just sort of tight knit community, and the Warrens were definitely the people we all sort of looked up to, and there were others, obviously. Hans Holzer, he was a little more of the storyteller
Hmm.
side of it. But of course, yeah, you have to pay homage to all of them. And, one of my investigation techniques and styles that I think we all use in the field is something that Ed Warren always said is that, you never know. You just got to wait. He would set up a lawn chair in Union Cemetery and wait for days, just
Wow.
hours on end. And as Lorraine would be like, "Get out of the graveyard," and Ed's like, "What do you mean? She hasn't shown up yet. The white lady's gonna come. I know it." But finally, after months and months, he had some success. But yeah, all of them definitely look up to. William G. Roll is somebody that I had a great admiration for and was lucky enough to study with him at the Ryan Research Center. It was quite awesome. Uh, and Lloyd Auerbach, of course, is somebody who I've always looked up to. His book, I still have my first copy of it behind me, but ESP Hauntings is the book that sent me on the path of going that more analytical, scientific sort of route. But yeah.
That's yeah. Now, Adam Berry said something very interesting to me when I was interviewing him. He said, "We are on the frontier of a new science." Okay? So, as a paranormal investigator who's been doing this for a very, very long time, I'm a true believer of the paranormal. Now, do you feel when it comes to evidence, we, and meaning you guys, have gotten all there is to get? You're going to continue getting those EVPs. You're going to continue getting the knocks, the bangs, the footsteps, uh, and you're coming up with newer and newer technology to capture voices, newer ways to communicate. But do you feel like we as a human race right now we have reached our limit into asking and getting deeper questions into the paranormal, meaning that the real question, what happens when you die? What's it like? That's where the communication sort of breaks off in all these investigations. So, do you feel we've reached our peak, or do you feel if we keep going, we are going to get more and more information?
That's a deep one. that's a, that's a good one. I think so. Honestly, I think if we keep the research strong and going, that we will uncover more. I think it's one of the reasons we're all still sort of doing this. Uh, Unfortunately, I think if anybody says that they do know what happens life after, that they may not know and perhaps just misinterpreting things, because I don't think anybody
No.
really knows, not yet. There's no definitive proof. We need, science will never look at it in a serious way for a few reasons. One, uh, for a real scientific study, you need repeatability,
Mm-hmm.
which doesn't exist, in the paranormal world, and you need the ability to measure, and there is no measurement in the paranormal world at all. There's nothing to measure, and I've sat down with many physicists, particle physicists, astrophysicists, and they all say the same thing, that until there's a way to measure and a way to have repeatability in a controlled environment, it's not something that science will ever take seriously. But what science is starting to sort of look at is the result of the phenomena,
Mm-hmm.
right? For instance, an object moves. They can't say, well, we know what moved it, but and they can't study what makes it move, but they know it moved, so there was an action there. So they can study that movement and maybe come to a conclusion how the movement took place, just how they know that wind exists. You'll see. You can't see wind with your eyes. You can't. It's not anything that they can measure anything, but they can see its effect. They can see that the tree and the leaves are shaking. They know that it exists not through the wind itself and the air movement, but through the result of what it's doing.
Have you spoken to any scientists that have acknowledged, hey, okay, this is poltergeist activity. This is unexplainable. I don't know why that dish flew out of the kitchen cupboard and landed 20 feet away. There's no. Have you met any scientists that are willing to at least admit, hey, I just don't know?
Yeah, yeah. I have excuse me, I have talked to a few. Dr. Michael Dennin is one that I've spoken with who does scratch his head on a few of the things, but to him, he still thinks there is a natural cause to it, and the paranormal is natural.
Yeah.
It's something that because if we see it with our eyes and it happens in the physical world, then it has to obey the laws of science as we know it to exist here. Because
Mm-hmm.
since scientific, principles, practices have been put into place in the 1600s, anything proven by science has never and can never be disproved. So once that has all been established, we know that everything we've proved in terms of science up until this point uh, is to be fact. So if we're seeing these things with our eyes and hearing them with our ears, they have to obey our rules here. And if they don't, the only way to explain that is perhaps interdimensional, and that's in the
Exactly.
science.
There was a study that came out several years ago that said that 60% of the world's population does believe that there is something there after death.
Yeah.
Depending on cultures, religion, faiths, they believe there's something is there. Does that number surprise you?
No, I believe it was a CNN study. It was pretty recent, maybe just 4 or 5 months ago, right? I think yeah.
Yeah, I remember it was pretty recent. Yeah.
Yeah. It 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 doesn't surprise me. I think most people are in a place that they think that there is something else happening out there. Enough people have had experiences that they know, can't be explained by just something naturally occurring in the physical world here. Does that mean a ghost? Maybe not necessarily, but can ghost be used as an umbrella term as anything that happened to you throughout your life that you can't quite explain? Probably, so it could encompass a lot of different experiences and not just a ghost, a sound that somebody can't explain, a door closing that maybe they couldn't explain and they say it's a ghost, but maybe they didn't try to look a little deeper. So the number may not be that accurate, but I think most people do
Hmm.
believe. I hear stories from people every day, no matter where I am. Whether it's a Starbucks, a Walmart, or a signing with where people are telling us these stories all day. They exist, and it's more people than not, I would say.
And I'm happy that it's come more acceptable to come out and talk about it. I'm happy that people feel free and they're not going to be judged as crazy, at least by the majority of people, I think. If something does happen to me, it hasn't yet, but if something ever does happen to me, I feel perfectly comfortable going up to someone and say, hey, you know what? Something happened last night and it freaked the hell out of me, and I have no explanation for what it is. Now, let's let's differentiate, like when you go to places like the Trans Allegheny Lunatic Asylum, which is just one state west of me in West Virginia, to a house that's with a family living in fear. They don't know what's going on. It could be something benevolent, it could be something malevolent. But if you can't see it and you don't know what its intentions are, it's going to naturally scare you. But going to the big haunted locations like Joliet, where you guys are doing this premiere on January 1st, the Trans Allegheny Lunatic Asylum, do you personally take any measures to protect yourself, to not keep yourself that open where something might come home with you, something might follow you?
I don't. No, I mean, I don't go out of my way to try to make that happen. I wouldn't want to live in a haunted house, quite honestly. I value sleep and relationships and career and that sort of thing. And all of those things are honestly quite hard to maintain when you live in a truly
Yeah.
haunted house. I wouldn't want to live in a haunted house. uh, I want to visit haunted houses, quite a bit, and I do. So that's cool. But I don't really, honestly. I have a lot of things in my house that are supposedly haunted. I have a lot of things that you think would be haunted, and I've never had anything happen here. But I will say that nobody living, I think, has an idea of what their interpretation of time and space is.
Yeah,
So maybe the experience has yet to happen. What it seems like, oh gosh, I brought this haunted sword home from, a case 4 years ago and nothing's happened. Maybe to that energy, it's a blink of an eye, or no time has passed at all.
exactly. We don't know what their reference of time is. I'm pretty sure it's not the same as ours. I mean, that's just a guess. But
Yeah.
so when you go to a house and you have this family, I'm sure you take that responsibility very seriously. You have this family, they are scared, they don't know what's going on, and I'm sure you and the rest of your team members approach this very seriously. You really want to help this family out. And you guys do everything in your power to find out, at least give them answers. uh, so, how much of a responsibility do you personally bear on your shoulders when you do go to a house with a family living in it?
Quite a bit. It weighs on us, and we think about it quite all the time, honestly, because if they are, truly scared and don't know what's happening, and sometimes you have children who won't go into the house without crying and can't stay in their bedroom, and don't want to play in their own house, and all of this, so they're relying on you. We set realistic expectations. We let them know. You'll hear Jason in every episode ask, what are you expecting us to be able to, because we want to set a realistic expectations. They need to know ahead of time that, we may not, and there's a good chance we may not be able to get rid of what's ever there. You never know if that's possible. Sometimes it is, but sometimes it isn't. But usually through some sort of, aftercare that we put together in terms of what we do there during the investigation, trying to let whatever's there know that their actions are affecting people who are, living and trying to live their lives like they once did. That sometimes that works. Empowering the family to take their home back with different techniques works quite well. It's quite good.
Yeah, yeah,
And yeah, just that education, and letting them know what they can and can't do
to
really
protect themselves.
help. Yeah, it does. And we have a lot of kids that see. We just had somebody recently ran up and just hugged us and said, "Thank you so much." Like, you should, and they didn't think we remembered them. I'm like, but of course we remember you. And some we still talk to. We play video games with them on like Xbox Live and stuff.
That's so
Yeah.
cool. When it comes to malevolent energies, yeah, if a person is a bad person in life, when they pass, they're more than likely going to be a bad person in the afterlife. And if you're good, you're going to be a good person in the afterlife. When it comes to entities that have never walked this earth in human form, okay, that's where people's faith and religion, Catholics call it demons, uh, the jinn. I mean, that just spans the globe, and depending on what your faith and religion is, do you believe that there are demonic entities that have never walked this earth, elementals that are just come from an unexplainable realm but have never been human? Do you personally believe in that, or do you believe that it's a spirit trying to use fear and calls itself a demon, mimics the acts of a demon, just to really scare the crap out of the living?
That's something I think as a paranormal investigator, you ponder quite a bit. I think most investigators do. Uh, but I think there's a good mix of both out there, to be honest. Whether I would label it a demon, I'm not sure, because as you said, if they were quite a gruff person when they were alive, there's a good chance they still are when they're dead.
Hmm.
So they could be doing malevolent things. They could be doing things that could be interpreted as evil or malicious when it's really just some guy that would probably jump you outside of a bar when he
Yeah,
was alive. You know what I mean? So that could be at play a little bit, but also there does seem to be some things happening that are energy based that don't seem to fit what you would think of as a human sort of profile in terms of its behavior and whatnot. And it seems to be just energy based. Whether that,
absolutely.
right, whether that's a demon, um, I'm personally not sure. I
Yeah.
do happen to be Catholic, so I do put some faith there. But even then, does that mean there are demons here on the earth trying to do things? And I just don't know.
Exactly. That's just one question that I don't know if we'll ever find the answer to. We're almost out of time. I do want to ask you about one last thing. In 2020, you produced a movie, the House, I believe it was called. Great documentary about a house that has been haunted for many years, and it's being used by several paranormal investigators who repeatedly visit it, use it as a sort of a learning tool, a mechanism to learn what's going on. And I thought it was great. You not only produced it, you made an appearance in the movie as well, came to view some of the occurrences. So, what was that experience like? And I would think you would have no issue with a house as long as the owners are cool with it, that allow paranormal investigators to come in. They know it's haunted and allow the paranormal investigation field to gain information from a known haunted house. How do you personally feel about that?
I thought it was, I mean, crazy unique. Honestly, I had never heard of a house that was, given to paranormal investigators for literally 10 years. And at the
Hmm.
point that we filmed, almost 11 years at that point, and just said, find answers. I can't live here, but I don't want to sell the house because if I sell it, I'll never get the answers. So if it happens to me again, I'm going to be terrified in life no matter what. So she actually lives in
Yeah.
a different place and doesn't live in this
Hmm.
beautiful home. She'll visit it during the day every once in a while, but that's about it. And I just knowing that, and when I met Alice, just seeing how things worked, or not, but how things worked in that small town and how they sort of looked at her and perceived, and the stigma attached to her for what she's going through. I thought it was really unique and a pretty cool opportunity to tell a story about that.
It's a great documentary. For anybody who wants to watch it, it's called The House.
The
Uh,
house in between, the house in
The
between.
House in Between. Check it out. It's a
Thank
great,
you.
great, great show. Movie. Produced by Steve Gonsalves here. Steve, thank you so much for coming on. I'm very much looking forward to the New Year's Day special with
Thank
you
you.
and the Destination Fear crew as well into Joliet. I have seen many previous shows of that place. It's creepy as hell. So
Yeah.
I'm have no doubt we're going to be taken on a wild ride. Any final thoughts you want to share before we go?
Yeah, thank you everybody for following along on our adventures. It's really a great, humbling and just awesome experience to be able to share 'em with you. So thanks for coming along.
Absolutely.
A lot of
Thank you
fun.
so much, Steve. Thank you to our audience who is watching this live and who will watch it later on. On behalf of Steve Gonsalves and myself, stay safe and stay walking. Goodbye, everybody.
See you.